Are we ready? Okay.
Yep.
All right. We'd like to welcome everybody to North Ogden City Council meeting tonight, March 25th. I'd like to excuse Mayor Berube. He's out of town, and council members Watson and Severing are not here with us right now. We're going to start our meeting off tonight with an invocation and a pledge of allegiance led by council member Dowpaz.
All right, I'm going to offer an invocation. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be gathered here, and we're grateful to be residents of North Ogden City. We ask that we can have a spirit of collaboration in this meeting and that we'll be able to discuss ideas in a civil and fair manner. We're so grateful for all that we have in our lives and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Tonight, we're going to start our meeting with a presentation from UTA, the 5-year service plan. We have Trustee Beth Holbrook and Chandler Butler. Did I say it right? Okay. So come on up, and I think we're ready for you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to do this presentation this evening. For the record, my name is Beth Holbrook, and I'm the trustee for Utah Transit Authority that represents Davis, Weber, and Box Elder counties. And one of the things that is a requirement for UTA to do is to start doing their internal planning and talking about, basically, this is the everyday version of all the service that we offer. For context, Wasatch Front Regional Council oftentimes does the Wasatch Choice 2050, and they get the large pieces correct and on their list, but this is everyday stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and go to the next page. This is the, I'm sorry, it cuts it off just a wee bit, but I'll just talk about this. So this is going to go through 2025 through 2029. The first 2 years are already funded and strategized, and that's how we have done our employee hiring to fit these next 2 years of expanded service. And that's a good thing. We're very excited to provide expanded service. So one of the smaller things, yet it's not small, is for any of your residents who happen to go to Davis Tech or any of these areas, there's going to be some changes to this service. The 470 is a route that's going to go to Layton Hills Mall. It's just going to basically be a little bit more connected and increasing service to that area of Layton Hills Mall, but then no longer doing Davis Tech because we have another route that's going to do that. So it's going to be more interconnected for the area around Layton Hills, as the map is hard to read, but that's what it shows. Next slide, please. So April 2026, this is the modified route of 455. And for context, the 455 goes to, it goes all the way through Ogden City. It ends in Weber State University. That is mostly more of a southern route. So it's bringing a lot of Davis County residents as well as further south to the Weber State University campus. And that's going to be modified just to create an additional service route on 30th Street. Next slide. April 2026, Weber County Modified Route 601. This is the Ogden Trolley. And for context, we're looking at 2026 as a major increase in service in the surrounding areas, and in addition to that, to Ogden as well. So in 2023, Ogden City had the installation of the Bus Rapid Transit, and that's called the OGX. And with the implementation of OGX, basically what occurred is that the Midtown Trolley, then all of the service fell off. And that makes sense because part of the design of the BRT was to be more interconnected and have more frequency. And so that's every 10 minutes. And then so what we're going to be doing with that is we're no longer going to have the trolley. We're working with Ogden City to really look at their areas of service that they need. And so we're going to be adding Route 604. That's the next, oh, you already got it. Good job. And this is going to extend to the D Event Center via 30th Street and end again at Weber State University. And again, it's this southern portion that we're going to try to continue to do increased service towards. Next slide. Modified route is 610. And this is going to be a bidirectional service on 12th Street. So this is more northern Ogden City area and Harrison Boulevard. And that's going to have more frequent service at every 30 minutes. It's going to really improve that east-west connectivity piece. And I apologize, it is very difficult to read the numbers on here specifically, but the 610 is basically going to go up in that northern area and swing around. And so it is what I would call the teal colored route. I'm like, it changes colors on every slide. Next slide, please. Modified Route 612 is going to go through the northern end Pleasant View Station rather than the North Ogden Loop. North Ogden Loop is going to be serviced by a brand new service that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. This is going to go to serve the Ogden Station via 23rd Street and 26th Street. And in addition to, of course, hitting our front runner station, then you'll now be able to also hit the OGX should you desire to do that. The Route 612 is also going to do the Adams Parkway, but it will not be servicing the Washington Terrace piece, which is going to be a new route or the modified route of 610. So this is going to change again. It's going to improve that connectivity piece. And it is on mine, it is the teal as well. So that's the route that's highlighted right there. And I apologize. I should have said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me as I roll along. Next slide is the modified route of the 625. And that route is going to be discontinued, replaced by the higher frequency service of the 610. And again, just for context, all of these proposed changes I'm talking about are in 2026. There's not going to be anything significant in 2025 except for the Layton Hills Mall piece. Next, and just for the context, the Route 610 is going to be a much better service model and have more of the frequency that we're looking to do. The next slide is the 630. And this is going to increase the frequency. This route's going to be deviated to the Pleasant View Station, which of course we do not currently service that, but we are working on getting that alignment established with Union Pacific. It's a bit of a slog through sludge. I'm not going to lie. It's challenging, but we have already purchased some land in BDO, about 23 acres to do a station there with the anticipation that we'll get from the Ogden station to the new BDO location and to Pleasant View. And that service will be all at once because that's going to be the alignment piece that we're working on with Union Pacific. So the 630 is going to be actually the 1100 South Walmart in Brigham City. And then it's going to be connecting further south. It's going to go through these two areas. And just for context, I'm not going to focus on the Box Elder piece except to say that both of those shaded areas are going to have what we call IMZs or innovative mobility zones.
Sorry, we'll ask.
Go ahead.
So
Sure.
is it, when you were talking about BDO, you're talking about BDO next to the tracks, right?
Yes, next to
Okay.
Front Runner. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, no,
Thank
that's
you.
what I thought, but I thought, I think she's talking about getting, because I wrote that down, train from Pleasant View to BDO. And so that would, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's how the stops would work. And then of course we've already purchased land in Willard for a station stop for Front Runner. Again, this is for Front Runner only. And this is not going to probably be accomplished until like the 2030 range to the 2040 range. So just kind of keep that context in mind. So this is not going to be pre-Olympics. We get that question a lot and we just don't have the capacity to do expansion right then. And then there's also going to be a stop in Brigham City. So
You said Olympics. So are they getting funding to push during that time frame?
not directly at this stage. for additional context, LA has 2028 and they've struggled. I'm sure this is no surprise. It's a public meeting, but LA has struggled. I know you're shocked. And so we are aligning our 6 key projects, and I'm happy to talk about that in just a second. But those we already have funding in for the strategic double tracking, which is going to improve service from Ogden to Provo. And that's going to become every 15 minutes on peak, 30 minutes off. So it's a huge game changer for us, the frequency. But then there's also some other elements like new cars, or new vehicles, I should say, not actual cars, the new freight cars. And in addition to that, it will be a new line. We want to create 2 lines to the Salt Lake City Airport. Anyway, I digressed. I apologize.
That was me all the way.
So so next slide is the 645. And this is going to be increased frequency weekdays specifically. And it's going to be going down Quincy Avenue to 30th Street to 36th Street, and then go up to Edvilson Street and go to 42nd. It's really going to be connecting Roy as well as Riverdale Road, and in that southern Ogden City piece to that. Service in the north is not going to go past North Street because, again, of the IMZ zone. And this is going to become a 30-minute stop. And again, for context, it is the teal colored route. Let's see. And then the last slide for 2026 is the IMZ, and we're calling it the Route 562, but I'm going to explain what that looks like. And specifically, North Ogden is going to be one of the beneficiaries of this. North Ogden, Marriott Slaterville, Harrisville, Plain City, and Pleasant View. So what an IMZ zone is going to basically be is it's going to be our service that we call on demand. And on demand is very similar to an Uber from the software piece. So if you're familiar with Uber, you pretty much know how to work our on demand. It's an app-based program. I will add a caveat though, because we are required to have ADA compliance, we do also have a phone number that people can call should they, be not technologically savvy, shall we say it like that, and or have other connectivity issues. And if you have a vehicle, half of our vehicles will be ADA compliant. And basically what that means is if you have a mobility device of any kind, you can use this service. And the goal of IMZ is certainly a piece of that is to connect to our service areas. So you can connect to any bus stop, you can connect anywhere in that area, but you can also connect to the Walmart, you can connect to the grocery store. I think it's Lee's, is that right, down on the corner? Yeah. And you can also go to, if you are a senior, for instance, you could go to a doctor's appointment that's within this area. It's geo-fenced, so again, it's only in the shaded area that it is available. But what it will actually really provide is a super local connection for all of your residents. And again, you can utilize the app. It is a flat $2.50, just like you were going to get on a bus. It doesn't escalate based on certain, whatever the parameters are for Uber. And so it's really available to enhance connectivity within these cities. And we kind of called this the precursor to greater service. So what this allows us to do is we get to look at all the patterns of connectivity because all of that data is captured so that we can then provide additional layers of service as we get future funding. But this 2026 is going to be, really, it is going to be the year of Weber County as a whole. And so we're very excited to bring this aboard. And I'm happy to answer any other questions. But I can just move on really quick too. So it's up to you guys. So now we're into 2027. And this is a modified Route 604. This is just Roy Station extensions, and we're replacing portions of the F620. And for context, the F is a flex route. And flex routes we have found are not quite as effective as they used to be. A flex route just basically means you can deviate about a mile outside of its traditional route. But we find that deviations mean it's unpredictable if you happen to be on that bus and you're not deviating. So it's kind of why we're phasing them into kind of a different strategy. Next slide is, apologies. April 2027 again is the BDO piece. And this is kind of a larger context of the south end of the shaded area is the IMZ zone that I've already talked about. And then this is 613, a modified route with weekday frequency at 30 minutes. And so again, the teal highlighted piece so that we can allow people that are in this IMZ zone to connect to the front runner should they desire to go further south. Next slide is April 2027, the modified F618, the F618 is basically going to be discontinued. It's going to be service from the 613 that we just talked about. And this really, what it does a lot of things, but it mostly maximizes our operating force. And as we continue to evolve, we really have restructured a lot of our operator scheduling, and which has been a huge challenge for us, especially I know everyone else kind of had these challenges of employment and all these other things in 2022. And so we've kind of restructured everything, and this allows greater connectivity, allows operators to utilize restroom facilities, all of these things that is actually equates to better service. Next slide is the F620. And this is going to be, again, discontinued. Route 604 is going to take that on. And you can see where the dotted lines are, where that's going to no longer be in service. Really quick, I'm going to talk about one of the next BRTs, but I'm going to go over it super quick because it's not really going to impact you per se. But what it is going to do is it's going to have modifications to the Route 470 and the 455. And we're adding a new BRT, which is the 470X. So right now, the name of it is the Davis Salt Lake Community Connector, which is a really long name. And so that's going to basically go from Farmington Station to the University of Utah Research Park. Again, it's mostly affecting South Davis to Salt Lake City. But the modification pieces to the 470 means that the 470 for Weber County is going to be that other east-west, or excuse me, north-south connection in addition to Front Runner.
BRT means what?
Oh, I'm so sorry. What was
Rapid
that?
transit.
Bus Rapid Transit.
Okay,
Thank
bus
you.
rapid.
Thank you. Very, very well done.
You know,
I can, you can come down here with me and help me. The next is April 2028, Route 600. It's going to replace the northern parts of the Route 470. Again, this is going to be an enhancement to the service that we have around here. Not a huge thing for this area, but again, it does talk about the connectivity pieces that we're incorporating. And then the next slide is 2028-609, and that's going to be 30-minute service. It's going to be freeway based. So basically it's going to connect to the park and rides along 89. So these are your Heights. These are anyone in that area heading to the D Event Center all the way to Farmington Station. So this is a very eastern portion of that. And the service frequency is a big thing. The more that we have frequency, the more that we find people utilize it. A lot of times, so I'm just going to talk about this little elephant in the room. We've heard people say, you know, well, I just see a bus pass me, but it looks like it's empty. It's not really empty. It just happens to not have many passengers at the particular time you see it. But what it's really doing is it's also connecting more frequently. And that's actually a good thing. It might seem counterintuitive, but there's a psychology in this, and the more people see the bus, the more that they think about it, the more they say, oh, it's constant. And I can see that I can actually put this into my calendar. So that's part of the science, if you will. I don't know if it's science more than just like a little bit of like everything all together. The 455, next slide is April 2028. The 455 is going to be discontinued south of Farmington, again, because of the 470X. Next slide is the 470 and the 473. These routes are going to be replaced by the 470X and the 600. The 470 is going to be reconfigured, and that was in a previous slide. So, but for context, just that you know this, that's why it's highlighted right there. And then the last slide that I have is just kind of this investment piece that we have done some analysis on. We basically wanted to make sure that we're providing value to our service areas and beyond. We roughly take about 5% of the vehicular traffic off of I-15, which maybe that's not the most important thing here, but yet it can be, especially if you're heading south and navigating through traffic. And certainly if you are doing freight, trucks, that's a huge thing to have as easy of a way to navigate as possible. Now, right now there's construction, so that's a different story. But for every dollar invested, we are bringing about 511 back in return to the economy, to the state of Utah. And you can see kind of the connectivity pieces, the indirect and direct, the 79,000 connectivity jobs. What we're trying to do is continue to look at these areas of growth and figure out how we can continue to connect to them. And then the last slide is just kind of contact information and any other questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
This is selfish because I work out there. Hill Air Force Base, do you have any plans to connect this area with Hill since we recently had a big return to office initiative?
That is a great question. And I love that question. A couple years ago, probably like maybe, this is probably in like 2016, 2017 timeframe. We actually were successful in working with Hill Air Force Base to get actually onto the base with a bus. The challenge, as you probably know, if you go to Hill, is that it's very vast. And because of security, they don't like to allow buses so much. Even buses that they've done background checks on the operators, they do the whole like security screen, et cetera, et cetera. But what we are doing is working with Hill Air Force Base to come up with a strategy so that we can connect. Once, for context, there's the West Gate, the 1800 is going to be another access point, I believe, at some point. I'm not quite sure where it's at for UDOT because they're building the interchange. And I think that they've already like redone the South Gate. So all of those gates combined are going to increase access to Hill Air Force Base. And then on top of that, Falcon Hill is doing a lot of development as well. And so as that growth continues, we are strategizing with Hill Air Force Base to figure out how we can work with the connectivity. Like if they're going to maybe do something on federal land that they can connect to all of their buildings too, because some of their buildings are redundant and quite old. And so they're trying to figure out what that's going to look like. We've had tremendous success working with Hill Air Force Base recently in terms of the air show, which is a one-time event, but that has really been, they've really worked with us a lot more. And so we think we can get there. Probably not in the next 5 years, but we definitely think that there's an opportunity there. I think that growth is going to drive that a little bit, but that's a great question.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Then I just wanted to comment on the IMZ initiative.
Mhm.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool, the way that that's going to be set up for North Ogden, Pleasant View, Harrisville type area. I only see that as a positive. That should be really good. I used to take the 612 when I was a kid. We'd ride our bikes from the North Ogden Divide is where I lived.
Yeah.
And we would glide our bikes all the way down to Smith's or Acres at the time or whatever. And then we were too lazy to ride our bikes home. So we throw our bikes on the bus and take the bus so it's losing that route. So there's a little bit of sentimental value here, but IMZ sounds really cool.
Yeah, thank you. We will. And as it gets closer, obviously, we're going to work with your city as well as like, we have trainers that come in and help at senior centers or at other locations, wherever you guys kind of say, hey, could you go over there? And as we get closer, we think that will be really valuable too. So, and one thing I have to apologize, I forgot to introduce Chandler. And you guys might know Chandler from another role, but we are very fortunate to have Chandler Butler here with us today. And he is, he's relatively new, he's only a couple months old. So the next time I come, you guys can ask him questions.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Just with, you worried, how much is federal funding that you guys get? And I'm trying to remember, I saw a slide, but I don't remember if there was a whole bunch of federal funding and if there's any impact that you see in the future or if that's pretty steady.
That's a good question. So like anything, I think in the federal space, there's a discussions going on, right? We have a lot of debt as a nation. That's no surprise to anyone. And how these funding pieces come out of that, I'm not 100% sure. It's still kind of being discussed. The continuing resolution goes to September 30th of this year, which means it keeps all of the federal funding at 2024 levels. And so here's how our federal piece works. Any new project, a capital project is what it's technically called, comes from a pot called the CIG. It's Capital Improvement Grant. And that's a federal grant that says, hey, transit agency, if you do X project, we will provide you with roughly 50% of that cost if you meet all of these criteria. And then the rest of it you come up with yourself. So these are very competitive. They are across the country. And these funding levels have increased in recent years, and we're not sure where that will stay. But we always have been quite competitive and have been somewhat successful in getting those grants. Again, those are arbitrary. They're not a given. And then we get the federal funding for our, what we call our maintenance and, oh gosh, now I just lost the term here that I'm looking for. Anyway, it is making sure that our system stays current and fully repaired. And that funding is roughly in the $70 million range each year. Again, it can only be used to repair. So for instance, if Front Runner has an existing rail piece that's broken, that's what that money can be used for, nothing else. So it can't be used for operations, nothing else, just strictly replacement of existing service area. So,
Sustainment, is that what you're looking for?
sorry?
Sustainment?
That's a good word too. It's like just on the tip of my tongue. I'll probably get it the second I sit down. But basically, it's just all about the maintenance piece. And now, can that change? That's pretty much held steady thus far. And as you guys know, you've built this beautiful facility, and if you never did another day's worth of like maintenance and repairs, you know that would become a problem. So I do think that would be looked at differently than the grant programs. But again, I think it's all part of that larger discussion. So I hope that kind of helped answer that question.
Well, I was excited to see we're talking Front Runner again and getting it back up here. At least there's a plan.
Yes,
So,
there's a plan.
okay. Do we have any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Call for any conflicts of interest. Does anybody have they'd like to disclose? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Discussion and action to approve March 11th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Those have been given to us electronically. Any comments or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve March 11th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dowpass, second by Councilmember Pulver. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'm an aye. Okay, we're moving on. This isn't on, I don't think this is on the outside agenda, but we have Chief Einen here with our police department. He'd like to give a comment or public statement before we go into public comments. So we'll turn the time over to him.
I'm Brian Einen, the Chief of Police for North Ogden. Thanks for hearing me, Council. I appreciate it. And Mr. Call, I appreciate that. Last month, the North Ogden Police Department conducted a DUI training referred to as a wet lab. This training involved voluntary participants consuming alcohol in a controlled environment wherein officers would conduct field sobriety tests to determine the volunteer's level of intoxication. I made a critical error in judgment by volunteering to be a participant in consuming alcohol that night. For that, I am very deeply sorry. Police officers are held to a high standard, and chiefs of police are held to an even higher standard. By not putting the members of the police department first, however well-intentioned I may have been by participating, I jeopardized an invaluable training by not having the proper oversight of that training, causing procedural missteps during the training itself. Furthermore, my actions caused undue negative public scrutiny of the city of North Ogden, the police department itself, and its members individually, as well as the members of my family. For that, I am sorry as well. And I'm making a public apology for my actions on that night. With that incident in the past, today, I look forward to the future. I'm excited to move forward and move the police department toward a better, more unified, and professional police department. I will do this with valuable lessons learned from this incident and use that as a foundation. With that foundation, along with our mission, vision, and strategic plan, it will enable the members of the police department to better serve the community and ensure the safety of our North Ogden citizens and its visitors. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear me tonight. And if it's okay with the council, I'd like to be excused.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Chief. I know we've all seen your leadership and we appreciate what you've done for our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the active agenda. So we're going to start out with public comments. So we're asking anyone that'd like to participate, please come up to the microphone, state your name, whether you're a resident of North Ogden, and let's keep our comments to 5 minutes or less. And then we'll have John let us know if anyone's online that would like to comment. All right. Okay, we're not seeing any public comments, so we'll move on with our agenda. Next item is discussion and/or action to consider resolution 04-2025 adopting a new culinary water impact fees. And our presenter will be John Call.
Thank you, Council. Tonight with our impact fees, we have 3 on the docket, and I'm going to talk a lot about the first one, maybe like 5-10 minutes, and then the others will kind of hit any differences. But essentially, an impact fee facilities plan, or the IFFP, is created by an engineering group. Some cities do it in-house, but we don't have that capacity, who then make recommendations on pipe sizes and or upgrades to infrastructure that are needed to accommodate new growth. In our case, the city currently is projected to be about half built out based on land mixes and commercial mixes. And so with the water facilities plan, they looked at where is growth likely to happen, what pipes are currently in the ground, and what pipes are going to be needed in the ground to serve those folks. That results in a document called an impact fee analysis, which is the IFA. And that is, in this case, Zion's Public Finance has done that review for us and created a document which takes the amount of pipe and work that's needed with our existing capacity. So some of our pipes, we might have a 12-inch pipe that really could have been served by an 8-inch pipe to this point, but the other 4 inches will get used in the future. They take that value and historic cost and include it into a jumbled fee called an impact fee. New houses that come into our city pay this fee. So every new home, new business, new whatever pays the impact fee. It's important to note that if it's a rebuild, so if you tear down a house and rebuild a house, you will not pay an impact fee, except for potentially a stormwater if there's a significant increase. Or same thing with a business. If you tear down a business, like the old Smith's was torn down, and now we have an Ace Hardware, Arby's, and a Starbucks in that area. They did pay some impact fees, but not full impact fees because they got credit for the building that was torn down. In the case of our water analysis, we have a very complicated water system. We have about 1 PRV for every 100 homes in the city. So just in the range of 70 to 80 PRVs, which is a pressure reducing valve. And they keep the water pressure from getting so high that it will blow your hair off in the shower, or the lines out in your house. Yeah, it's too late for me. Yep. But the impact fee documents are designed to take a complicated system like ours, put it in language that it's the way the code says is it's that a normal normally understandable by a lay person. What that really means,
Good luck.
and no offense to the contractors in the room, but that's a contractor. Because the typical resident of North Ogden doesn't understand the language in these documents. As much as we try, there's just all these nuances involved. But essentially, these documents work together to map out the projects, where everything's going, where everything's needed. And then the IFA recommends a fee to the council. The council then reviews that recommendation and adopts a fee that then we then charge to new houses. And I'm trying to scroll down to the impact fee being recommended.
I think you're in the sewer.
Oh, I am in the sewer one. No wonder it looks too low. Although I think that the developers in the room were excited at that one. Water is typically our has historically been our most expensive impact fee. Because it involves a very sophisticated system. The fee being recommended currently in this, and I'll add this caveat to this one, in the final review we did with our engineering team, or our engineer and our water team, we found some issues that we feel like it's asking for projects that aren't actually needed. So we're working with our engineer to actually get the fee reduced, or it's likely going to result in a reduction, I should say. And we're hoping to have that back before the council sometime in the next month. But prior to that, the recommended fee for 2025 would have been that a single family home would pay $7,416 per door to connect to our water system. And that helps by wells or well capacity, storage tanks, water lines, everything that goes into the water system, including those PRVs that we talked about. A multifamily, because they have a smaller typical residential occupancy level, would pay $6,600.60 under this proposed thing. As I mentioned on this one tonight, staff is not recommending that water be adopted, but that we still hold the public hearing, talk about the fee, hear from anyone in the room. And then on the others, I'll talk about maybe some of the nuances with water or with storm and sewer that are slightly different than water. But the majority of water, to put it into perspective, is new projects that are needed to put main lines up roads to then have subdivisions branch off. The subdividers typically put in an 8-inch line to handle the fire flows needed for a subdivision required by insurance companies. And the city is typically only talking about those 8, 12, and 16-inch lines. I don't believe we have any 24-inch lines in the city. And so those are kind of the ones we typically are dealing with that are in this impact fee plan. It is also important to note that the money in this plan doesn't upgrade any of our systems that are deficient. So if we have a pipe that's undersized, so up until fairly recently, we still had some 4-inch pipe in the city, which is not large enough to run a fire hydrant the way the fire department wants us to. So those have been upgraded to 8-inch pipes, but not at the cost of new homes. They were done at the cost of the fee payers, those of us who've lived in the city. And that is a nuance, but in the impact fee plan, it does show how that's broken down, because some projects benefit new users and existing users. And so they do what's called a proportionate share analysis, where they make sure that existing users pay for their share of it, and new users pay for the upsizing. A good example is roadways is kind of an easy one. Washington Boulevard, as you head up the hill, could always handle, 12,000 cars a day. As growth has come, there's been a need to increase that capacity. And in fact, the capacity on Washington Boulevard was about 14 to 15,000 cars a day. And so those cars that were over the capacity, the city had to use its general fund coffers to pay to increase the size of the road. And then the remaining 70% is in the impact fee funds. And we're not talking about streets tonight, but I think that helps people kind of visualize impact fees. So on this one, we'd recommend we hold the public hearing, get public comment, but not pass the resolution for tonight. We'll bring it back to you when we've got the kinks worked out of the IFFP and the IFA, and bring back hopefully a lower fee. Just based on what we've seen initially from our discussions, we think it will be lower. I think in the staff report, I identified that this, as recommended in front of you, is actually a doubling of the fee from about 3,600 to over 7,200. Obviously, that's not our goal. The reality is pipe and excavation costs have gone so high since we last did this that we can't put a pipe in the ground for what we used to charge for impact fees. We'd only be recovering about half of what we should. And in fact, I think the developers could probably tell you that those darn excavators really, really want a lot more money to do some work. So if you have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, or we'd recommend you do the public hearing and not approve this one tonight. Just table it for a future, or postpone it to a future meeting.
All right. Do we have any questions for our city manager?
This screen is super, I think everywhere it's shared blotchy. and it's
Yeah.
bugging me.
At
Can you
at least
maybe
your screen's
unshare
working.
and reshare or something to see if it fixes it, or just because I mean, if I can't see it, no one else can on those. Yeah. But sorry, that was bothering me. But I say we hold the public hearing potentially, so we for sure have that completed.
Is that a
And so-
motion?
I move that we open a public hearing regarding adopting a culinary water impact fee.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We do have an open public hearing for the water impact fees. So if anyone would like to make a comment, come on up and make your comment on the water impact fees. All right. Seeing no comment, motion to get a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right. Thank you. Do I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Public hearing's closed. Staff is recommending that we postpone these. Can I get a motion to postpone?
Motion to postpone the culinary water fee discussion.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Councilmember Dowpass. Ryan, are you keeping all this straight? It's just these two. I know. Okay. Yep, all right. Okay, so all in favor of postponing, say aye.
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 Aye, okay. Now we're moving on to the next item, Resolution 4/2025, adopting, that's on my list twice. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna go to Resolution 5/2025, adopting a new stormwater impact fee. And again, presenters, City Manager John Call.
Thank you. So the unique thing about stormwater as compared to water is there are not a significant amount of new projects being proposed. The reality is that most of our basins have been constructed, though not all. There are quite a few that will be needed along the Monroe Boulevard alignment as it's constructed. And so that's what you'll see here is the driver of these growth numbers. But the reality is that this has a somewhat a larger as a percentage buy-in component. And then sewer, as you'll see in a few minutes, is actually almost 100% buy-in. The idea being that over the history of the city, we've had good planning for these sort of things so that if we thought we'd need a 24-inch pipe because we did these impact fee analyses in the past, we put in a 24-inch stormwater pipe as opposed to a 15-inch. And that is resulting in an impact fee that is going up to, if you can read it, I'm sorry, it's the display on this computer.
That screen's turned off.
It's gone all sorts of wacky on me. So we'll do what we can for next time. And then so it's gone up maybe, sorry, it's in the staff report, but it's more than double because of the work that needs to be done on the Monroe alignment with all those basins as it comes down is significant, and running stormwater pipe is not cheap. And so the impact, I'm just going to pull it up so I can tell you the exact numbers on the impact fees. It's going from 873 up to a recommended for this year, 2186.49. So it's almost triple what it was in the past. And for commercial development, we charge them per square foot as well as multifamily. And so that would also be going up about 3 times to 78.09 cents per square foot of impervious surface. We do allow in impact fees, and I should have mentioned this early, what's called an individualized analysis. So if someone can show us that they are doing activities which will help reduce, in this case, the amount of stormwater runoff, then we can reduce their impact fees accordingly. So if someone came in and said, hey, I'm retaining all of my stormwater. So everything that goes off my parking lot goes into these swells and it stays, it never leaves the city, except for in like a major storm event where it might overflow into the street and move. Then we might have small to little impact fee that we would exact from them. But what is recommended is those numbers, which for 2025 would be the 2186.49 per single family home and 78.09 cents per square foot of commercial or multifamily. And so we would recommend you do adopt this and hold the public hearing. I should have mentioned before, the council is not required to accept the maximum fee. In fact, the council can do something less than that. You just can't charge more than what's been recommended by the documents. And then one of the reasons that you'll see on the table that it escalates all the way from the current recommendation to where it gets, it actually, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong chart there. I'll just open the resolution because that'll be easier to do. But it actually, the fee goes up as you move into the future because the time value of money. So if I have $1 today, next year it might be worth $1.03. Well, depending on how you think the economy is going. But in theory, the city, if we get it earlier, it's less expensive, so we can actually charge a smaller fee. With stormwater, they're projecting that by the 2033 timeframe, it'll go up. I didn't do the math on this, so I'd hate to promise you, but it'll go up maybe $100. Sorry, I should have done the math to show you, but it'll escalate because as it's paid in the future, that money's worth a little less.
And is that automatic, or does it or do we have to come back every 1 or 2 years to reconfirm that number?
So what we'll do is in our fee schedule, we will identify that this will automatically increase each year, and that's part of the resolution. Is by adopting the resolution with the table, it'll automatically go into our fee structure. I would say 90% of the cities do this now. For some systems, they don't. For example, I believe I'm 90% sure on sanitary sewer, we don't have this same thing happening because it's entirely a buy-in component. So all the developers are doing is buying into our existing system, and we have a set value based on what we spent on it. And so it's just paying ourselves back. So there's no future projects we're saving for. So there's no value in holding the money because we just pay ourselves immediately. If that makes sense. So that's all I have on this one, unless you have questions for me.
Any other questions?
So our impact fees, I understand, are substantially higher than neighboring cities. I'm guessing the basic reason to that is that they haven't done recent studies. Or what's the actual explanation to that, in your opinion?
So there's a couple things going on. One is if you look at it strictly on the per fee basis, we haven't been that far out of line. So like our water compared to Pleasant View's water is not going to be that different, although I haven't looked at theirs recently. I believe they're actually in the process of redoing theirs right now. Like they've just started the beginning of this process. But if you look at some things like Pleasant View hasn't historically had a transportation utility fee, and we have. And for a home, that's a $2,600 increase. We are right now, even before this adoption, I believe the second highest in the county as far as impact fees go, not the highest in the state. Utah County's impact fees are typically higher than ours. But ours has been so long since we looked at it that we are just in reality behind the time. And our system is especially with water going up the hill, it's quite a bit more expensive. Stormwater is more expensive because ground is more expensive. So when we go out and buy ground for basins and things like that, then there are the things that impact that as well. So it's we will with this be the highest in Weber County as of last I checked. So
Yeah, I would just say that I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we lower that from the recommended amount from this assessment. I just think we're already way behind as it is. So if we were to reduce the amount that is suggested in this resolution, that would concern me.
and one thing that your comment just brought up, if someone wants to challenge the city impact fee and it ends up coming in that we should have charged less, let's say, they paid $2,000 and they should have only paid $1,000, they get their refund. And then the city just adjusts its fees down, but we don't get penalized. We don't have to refund the whole amount. We only would refund the difference between the two. And so the city has quite a lot of protection in the Impact Fee Act. But developers and those folks do have quite a big seat at the table in the sense that they can come in, challenge fees, and we can have a conversation and see where their concerns are and kind of draw a line in the sand that gives them the ability to get a refund at with not a lot of headache. It's just the reality. But I think I'm not sure. I think you two were on the council a couple of years ago when we bought a bunch of pipe because plastic was going up, and we spent, I think, 200 and some odd $1,000 and saved 70 grand over the price increase. Like the pipe and excavation has just got so expensive that every city needs to update their impact fees because none of them are collecting enough would be my interpretation if they haven't updated it in the past 3 years.
And on the flip side, though, with all the money we do collect, we have to show exactly where it's going. And we have to turn in a report every year to the state of what we're spending our impact fees on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a comment?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the biggest thing, and I don't know if anybody else is in the public has read this, but the biggest thing is the fact that when you're looking for the future, you're talking about different roadways that are going to be your main north-south, because keep increasing Washington, you're not going to be able to get from one way to the other without a 45-minute delay. And that's one of the biggest thing is Monroe is what? Can't even do the percentage, like 95% of the cost increases because you have to do all of the stuff along Monroe between I remember how far south it goes, but to get it to where it is currently, it's going to take a lot of money to buy the land, do the things you need to do to offset the tension, and that's of the road itself. And I think, and I wondered because I was thinking about it too, but I guess there's not that much left to connect with Mountain Road, so that's not really a huge thing, I guess. But that would be another thought that's still to be determined as well. So I get the cost. I mean, you're talking 14 million. You got to somehow figure out how to get it. And I think, people need to understand, and I went through all of this because it's like, property tax can go up a little bit, but when you start talking fees, that's kind of impacting you on especially for growth, when people understand or see how much and the worry that, do other people think that we're, a rich city or too rich for whatever. But I think the bottom line is that we're planning ahead. And like you said, I don't think a lot of other cities are. So, we might be number one, but that's because we're ahead of the game. And I just want to make sure people understand that. And it's hard to think about and a big pill to swallow, but that's where we're at. So anyway.
All right. Well, with that, I'd look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open a public hearing related to the proposed stormwater impact fee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the public hearing's open for stormwater impact fees. All right, seeing no comments, we'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
All right. So we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 05-2025, adopting a new stormwater impact fee.
I move that we approve resolution 05-2025, which is adopting a new stormwater impact fee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All right, so this will be a voice or roll call vote. Tonight we'll start with Councilmember Dowpaz and we'll just work our way down the line. So Councilmember Dowpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that's three yeses. Okay. Moving on, item number 7, discussion and or action to consider resolution 06-2025, adopting a new sanitary sewer impact fee. Presenters, City Manager John Call.
Thank you, council. I should have trusted JD and not been messing with the display settings. I might have just broke it, so.
It's my fault that I even asked.
100% JD's fault.
No, you're,
I accept that.
oh, he told me, he said, oh, it's fine, we'll figure it out later. So on the sanitary sewer, this impact fee, it is going up because in the time we last evaluated it compared to now, we did do some investment, particularly as the council invested in relining our pipes. So we had a concrete pipe that may or may not have been in good enough shape to continue operating. We ran a plastic pipe down the middle, a sock, inflated it, cured it, and now we have a plastic lined concrete pipe. That has extended the life of the pipes by several years, but that also comes with a cost to extend that life and allows us to charge that new cost to homeowners or new people coming in. So the impact fee is going from $455 per home up to I got the wrong document open. Going up to $846.73. So that's the recommendation in the resolution. This one, as I mentioned, is essentially entirely buy-in with the understanding that people are buying into those pipes that are fully upgraded and rehabbed now, as opposed to the original install cost. So that's why there's an increase, whereas in a lot of cities, there wouldn't be an increase because that historical cost is fixed in place. But we went out on our own with our money and upgraded them. So now we can charge what the original cost plus the upgrade is together.
So we still have like a third to go overall, or is it half?
So
So reline completely.
we have relined half of the city.
Half. Okay.
Most of those are the smaller lines. So now we are moving on to the larger lines, and that's more expensive and slower. And we've also been coating our manholes as well. Please don't open any of our manholes. But if you're properly guided by a public works person, they can show you the inside. It looks green. It's been sprayed, so it looks like it's been lined with plastic, and it's cured to help waterproof and just with the maintenance of it.
I think that was in one of Dave's briefings. Was it last year?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if people want to look.
So that's the recommendation, is to hold a public hearing and adopt the 873.20 for a single family home and the 77.15 for a multifamily. And then commercial users pay based on the size of their water meter, with the understanding, and we'll talk about this when water comes back. Some commercial businesses have to have a larger water meter because the fire riser is required to draw so much water. So on those, we'll work with them on an individualized analysis to make sure that they're not paying for an 8-inch water line if they're not using that much water. So that's the recommendation from staff.
All right, any questions? Or if not, we'll look for a motion to open the public hearing.
Just a comment.
Okay.
And then when I was reading through this, it hit me pretty hard that we're talking 2025, about 8,000, what they call a equivalent resident units. And in the quote build out in 2050, they have 12,000, which that scares me a lot, but hopefully I'll be around, but I don't know. We'll see. But it's just one of those things that if you don't plan now, you're going to be, having every single resident impacted by this. So anyway,
All right, I'll be looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
motion to open the public hearing for, what are we on? Sewer fees.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Pulver,
Second.
second by Councilmember Dowpaz. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, public hearings open for sewer impact fees. All right, look for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
All right, by Councilmember Dowpaz. Can I second one for once? All right, I'll second this one. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, look for a motion to approve resolution 06-2025, adopting a new sanitary sewer impact fee.
So moved.
All right, Councilmember Pulver.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dowpaz. Do we have any other discussion? All right, look for a vote. Councilmember Dowpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, moving on. Item number 8, discussion and or action to approve and assign members to the informal committee with Pleasant View to explore the viability of entering into an interlocal agreement for police services. And presenters, City Manager John Call.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. So council, this is just as a follow-up from last meeting where we were talking about the two cities potentially exploring the option of an interlocal agreement. For those who weren't in the room, this is not a conversation about creating a new taxing entity or combining these departments in a way that would create an independent group. It would still be the budget would be overseen by the councils independently, and then it would be managed as originally proposed. Granted, it hasn't all been written down yet, by a 3-member board, either the mayors or some other individuals representing the city, and then a kind of an independent third party. The purpose of the discussion tonight is about establishing two council members to participate in this cohesive exploratory group who will look at some of the ins and outs, look at the positives, look at the negatives, and then they'll come back and make a recommendation to the councils independently on whether to move forward, and if the recommendation is to move forward, what that agreement might look like. I know that a couple council members, or at least one council member, has expressed a desire to serve or a willingness to, which is Councilmember Severing. Other names have been thrown out. Though, you all might be in the room. I mean, but in theory, the group would be made of the 2 mayors, and then 2 council members from each council, and potentially could include others if the councils wanted to, but that was kind of the original proposal. And so tonight we're talking about suggesting 2 people to participate. Pleasant View will talk about it, I think, in next week at their council meeting, whether they would like to do it or not. And so the recommendation is to pick 2 of you to serve. If Pleasant View picks 2 people, then that committee or that group would look at additional information and would probably have access to as much finances and other information they might need in a way that could help them make an informed decision on their recommendations back to the councils respectively. So just need 2 of you to be voluntold.
All right, so any discussion on anyone like to volunteer for this position?
I would be glad to. I would be glad to be a part of it. I'm guessing that most people would be willing to meet after work hours, because that would be my availability most of all. But if that's a problem, then maybe I would bow out. But I would be willing.
Okay, and
Willing, but leaning towards that.
I was gonna say, where you're our police department liaison, I feel like you should, if you want to do it, you should have the opportunity.
First dibs.
Yep. All right, so what about our second? We've heard Councilmember Severing would like to be on the committee, but he's not here tonight.
If Councilman Severing has expressed interest and has also previously served as the police liaison, I see that could
Okay.
be a good thing.
You can't say no, he's not here.
Nope, he's not here. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then what were we gonna do about the other potential members? We talked about potentially having a resident or residents on the committee, maybe from North Ogden and or Pleasant View. Do you remember where that was, John? What did we say about that?
I know, I mean, because last meeting wasn't an official vote meeting, so if the council would like to explore that, we could set an agenda item for a future meeting to talk about who those would be. So on April 8th, we could bring back those unless you have names you suggest, because you could suggest it and then Pleasant View would know about that for their meeting next week and they could suggest some too, and we could go from there. Having a large group isn't the worst thing in the world, but I wouldn't make it 20 some odd members, but 9 is probably manageable total.
Were we considering, sorry, you would think I would remember from last week. But it seems like we were kind of considering Judge Lambert and former Sheriff Dearden to be a part of it, or was it just that they were involved in initial discussions?
Those were the two that the Mayor Call, Mayor Berube had suggested might be the third independent that would, so the two mayors this would be the governing board. However, having one or both of those involved, they're both very knowledgeable about the public safety realm, and I think they both were officers. So totally up to the council.
Maybe we could suggest 2 council members from each city, of course, the mayor from each city, and then a certain number of residents, to at least include 2, because we would want to potentially include former Sheriff Dearden and former Judge Lambert. So we could say 2 total residents, 4 total residents. I don't want it to get too out of
You get too
control.
many, you're not going to have a day that everybody can meet.
That's also a thing. So maybe we could say up to 4 residents total. So 2 resident, it doesn't matter that they're all, if we had 1 from North Ogden and 3 from Pleasant View, that wouldn't matter to me as long as,
Pleasant View may have recommendations too.
yeah,
So
okay.
So if
So-
you're looking for 2 people, I think we know, or council folk.
do we have a motion to nominate 2 people to this committee? 2 council members.
You want me to do it since?
Sure.
It's probably worth noting, this is not, it sounds like an official committee. It's technically, because it's between the 2, there's not enough members of any city that's been elected that it becomes official. It just helps with the burden on minutes and notes and things like that. So it's more like our citizen subcommittee, where it's this group that operates. And then I think they could decide whether or not they're going to, hold them in a public meeting forum, or if they'll do independent study, or how they'll run it. So just, you can call it a committee, just so we know it's
Yeah.
not that type of committee.
Then with that said, we will do the 2 council members here. And since it sounds like you have the liberty to kind of communicate with Pleasant View, however many residents we want to do, whether it's 2 to 4 extra, that I don't think it needs to be said here, but probably 2 to 4 residents between the 2 cities.
Okay.
Yep.
And they can, Pleasant View will probably input in their next meeting, and they might decide we just want to do 2 total or 4 total. Just let them have a little say.
Councilmember Pulver? You had,
Do we need to make it formal, or is that
Yes.
good enough?
yeah, we need to make a motion.
So I make a motion that Councilman Severing and Councilman Dalpaz are part of the subcommittee to basically work with Pleasant View to come up with a plan for working with the police, for both police departments to come together in a organized fashion.
All right, so we have a motion. I'll second that as well. We'll start with a voice or a roll call vote. Councilmember Dalpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Congratulations, Councilmember Dalpaz
And Severing.
And Severing. Yep. All right, item number 9, discussion and or action to consider the acceptance of the annexation petition for 19.56 acres of property located at 1050 East, 2400 North. Our presenter is City Recorder Ryan Santoro.
Thank you, Council. Tonight, I am presenting the annexation packet for your acceptance. This is not an official approval of the annexation. This is just accepting the petition. If you do accept the petition tonight, I will certify it, and then there's a lot of back work that will go on. It will go into a 30-day protest period before it will come back before you, and after it goes to the Planning Commission for a zoning recommendation for the official approval of the annexation, where it will then go to the Lieutenant Governor's office. So tonight I am just presenting the annexation petition, which was submitted by John Hanson on behalf of Lyman and Lonnie Barker. The property is located at 1050 East, 2400 North. It's by the Trout Farm. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yay.
Councilmember
Darn.
Delpaz.
Oh, two.
Close.
Do we, it doesn't necessarily matter, but for informational purposes, do we have a potential requested zone that they are asking for? I didn't see it in the information, but just curious.
Let me see if I have that in my note. Hold on just one second.
We do have
I
our
was
planning
gonna say,
director
it
and
looked
the
like-
applicant here, so they could.
R110.
Okay, which is about 10,000 square foot lots-ish?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion or questions?
You said it was by the trout farm.
Yep.
Does it include the trout farm?
It includes access into the trout farm,
But not the trout farm.
but not the trout farm.
Because then that would be commercial, right?
We have our city planner.
It comes speak in the microphone, just so it's on record, Scott.
The trout farm's actually in the unincorporated county, so we don't manage that as commercial, and the annexation petition ignores the trout farm, doesn't ignore it, but isn't requesting the trout farm nor the properties that surround the trout farm. So this is limited to just the agricultural properties to the west, with one little kind of access parcel that would connect and touch to the private street that goes to the trout farm. So we've been talking about how that private street connection goes, what the signage might look like, how to better get people in a safer way to the trout farm. But it is not inclusive of that. And so we sort of, for lack of a better word, ignore it because we don't issue that business license.
Thank you.
And I would say that one of the long-term goals that has been expressed by the city is to, in theory, potentially create a zone and an agreement with the trout farm that if they wanted to come into the city, they could come in and keep operating like they are with some assurance that the city isn't going to come in and be like, great, asphalt everything and do kind of ruin the character of that. But those have been very soft, like, oh, we'd be willing to do this, or at least approach the council about it, just without, just so if they're interested, then we are at least having the conversation.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we look for a motion to approve the annexation petition for 19.56 acres located at 1050 East, 2400 North.
Do we have to approve that or she?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Accepting the petition. All right, I move that we accept the annexation petition for 19.56 acres of property located at 1050 East, 2400 North.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All right, look for a vote. Councilmember Delpaz,
yes.
Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. All right, moving on to item number 10, discussion and or action to consider ordinance 2025-04, amending North Ogden Code Title 11-17 for wireless telecommunication. Our presenter is our Community and Economic Development Director, Scott Hess.
I'm going to sit down because you stacked all my items together and I'll. We have a request by Verizon. We do have Representative Dakota Hawks here. This was an item heard by Planning Commission on February 19th, 2025, held a public hearing. This is a public meeting, not a formal public hearing by state code requirements. Our city council has typically allowed public comments when it comes forward, but the state requirement for public hearing was met at Planning Commission. Verizon contacted the city, applied for the zoning text amendment, and submitted a document from their standards about what would help modernize our wireless telecommunications towers. And I think the biggest issue that they were running into, well, two and the things that they proposed was, one is give staff more latitude and administrative approval ability in order to speed up towers. The Planning Commission kind of pulled back on that and still would like to see wireless telecommunications towers come in as site plans. And then the other one was reducing setbacks. So the current tower setback requirement, regardless of zone, is that the tower be set back the distance that's the same as the height of the tower, regardless of where the property line is or zone. Planning Commission did reduce that. So after a lengthy discussion, and it's in your ordinance, they determined that antennas shall be set back from any residentially zoned property line, a minimum distance equal to the height of the tower. So that retains that for residential properties only. In civic, commercial, and manufacturing zones, the minimum setback distance shall be 10 feet from the property line unless a compelling reason to reduce the setback is determined by the Planning Commission during the site plan review. So it actually gives Planning Commission the ability to reduce that if they can show that there's a reason. Maybe you straddle two property lines, and I'll pick on a couple of property owners here, and there hasn't been a proposal there, but you can think of between maybe Olive Flutter's little building and what's coming in for Lock It Up Storage's commercial building. There might be a compelling reason to have the tower be zero lot line in that location in order to reduce impacts to the parking lot or sit in a landscaped area. When looking at the site as a whole or the few properties around it, it would really have no effect or need to be 10 feet off of a property line. So it gives the Planning Commission a little bit of latitude. The other regulation that would be added is that city-owned properties should be the first priority for the location of a telecommunications tower. These typically come with a lease, so that isn't necessarily a money grab, but it does offer the city the ability to negotiate with the landowner. And then we have several properties that the city owns that are future parks or park locations. We have the Civic Center here as well that may be necessary for a tower. But the thing that we do own is several hillside properties. And I think that those are areas where the coverage is less, and we all want cell phone service to work well. We all want 911 or 911 to work well. So the Planning Commission could see that as a potential benefit to prioritize city-owned properties first. There's not a hard requirement in there. It's not, you shall do that, but in the consideration or in the questions for the site plan location, I think the question from staff and Planning Commission would be, have you considered city-owned properties that are at similar elevations or similar coverage areas? Show us where your coverage blackout areas are. So with that, Planning Commission made a recommendation for approval with those ordinances. Staff has prepared an ordinance. I think if Ryan, if you can give us, it's ordinance 2025 dash, and I don't have the final number. Thank you. Ordinance 2025-04. And then staff is happy to answer any questions, or we also do have representatives from Verizon here who were the applicants for the application.
Yeah,
I
Councilmember.
do have an open lot next to me that would be perfect. So I could actually have, because we did have a person call 911 and they couldn't really figure out what they were saying. And so they sent everybody
Sure.
and guns drawn, yada, yada. And it was just a fire. So I think that's, to me, I think that was one of my biggest things is getting more cell towers up the hill. And so, yeah, I'm all for trying to get more coverage, period. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been a moving target in my career over the last 17 years of something that was really scary at first to something that we all just really want our cell phones to work. And it isn't just cell phones. I mean, wireless communications towers provide Wi-Fi signals too. And we aren't necessarily, at least in my personal household, reducing the number of Wi-Fi connected devices that are in any one household. And so we're continuing to increase load on wireless communications towers. And we all want our emergency services to.
And washing machines to make sure that you can know when.
Yeah.
I was,
dishwashers and.
did you know that? Anyway.
I Take offense to your just a fire comment though.
Just to find.
It's just a fire.
Did you need guns drawn when you're trying to put out a fire?
We don't carry guns. It's okay.
I know.
All right. Any other comments or questions for Scott?
Just that I know that the planning commission spent a good portion of time talking about this and getting it to where it is. So I feel very confident that it's ready.
All right, we'll be looking for a motion then to approve ordinance 2025-04, amending North Ogden Code Title 11-17.
Mayor Pro Tem, I propose that we approve ordinance 2025-04, which is amending North Ogden Code Title 11-17 related to wireless telecommunication.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All right, be looking for a roll call vote. Councilmember Dowpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, moving on. Item number 11, discussion on the Wasatch Front Regional Council vision. And again, Community Economic Director Scott Hess.
Do you want to try plugging in your laptop and let's see if it'll work better?
Maybe you got a better resolution.
By plugging in, it's just gonna be this one, right? Not like my bank balance and anything else I have.
Sure.
Should
we'll
just
go
show
with
what's on your screen.
We'll find
Let's see,
out.
table.
So,
I think this has been a good example of how frugal we are in the city. We're making do with what we have.
this is
Right, John?
We
Yeah, you're-
do more with less and make do with what we have.
I bet your resolution rate is wrong, and so we'll
Oh,
we'll
no, really?
deal with that in the future. Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna have John open up this map. Wasatch Front Regional Council uses a 4-year process to update their regional vision. I benefited from working there for 5 years, so I know a lot about the organization, but they cover 5 counties. They mainly focus their transportation dollars on the urbanized areas of Weber, Davis, and Salt Lake counties. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, which it's different and it's the same and different than WFRC, but it reaches up like a little lollipop up to Brigham City. So that's where the federal funds are eligible up to Brigham City. And then it also covers the shoulder counties of Tooele and Morgan counties, but does that as more like an association of governments. They don't have formal Metropolitan Planning Organization federal funds that come into the area. North Ogden has been a recipient of these dollars. And in fact, Washington Boulevard widening and expansion project came from a surface transportation planning grant from WFRC that oddly enough, I was on the tour for working for WFRC and met with the mayor and Lauren Gardner at the time to see that project and help score it. So that's kind of a fun like connection point back. Those funds are 6 years out. We have applied for those. We have upcoming grants coming in for transportation funds. We also have some upcoming pedestrian grant applications coming in to improve pedestrian crossings at 3100, 2750 and Mountain Road with push button signalized crossings. And we continue to apply. So as Wasatch Front Regional Council updates their underlying transportation layers, which I love that Trustee Holbrook was here because that's all integrated directly into what Wasatch Front Regional Council is doing, which is regional decision-making. Over 20 years ago, they started doing regional land use planning, and it started with just a big capture and grab of everybody's general plans and trying to massage all the land uses together to come to kind of a simplified map of what the region could look like or where the growth centers are. And they asked the city for its opinion and position on the updates to the Wasatch Choice 2050 or Wasatch Choice vision. And there's no obligation for local land use planning, general plans to directly align with the regional vision. But what it does is it gives you priority funding opportunities. So the next time we apply for funding to do a major transportation project, if it's within one of these vision centers and or our map aligns with the vision centers, then we're more likely to receive funding. And there's 3 primary changes. So this is the current Wasatch Choice 20 vision, John, and then there's the new version as well. So the current vision has these centers identified where you would think the centers would be. There are major commercial zones of the Southtown Center, the 2 grocery stores, downtown, the Civic Zone. And the new link, if you can go to the staff report, I think the link is in the staff report to on page 2. I have it as that link to Wasatch Choice Vision right there. That one should take you to the map. Well, hit the button there, and then let's zoom into North Ogden and see if this shows the most up-to-date version.
Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
Is it a layer?
It's really exciting because we're going to show you new commercial areas north of the current commercial areas. That's what I'm really interested in getting your feedback on.
Is that layer on the left, that little layer box, does that layer new stuff on it at all? No.
Hang on.
I remember seeing it in planning commission.
Yeah.
It's there. We've had a version of it. Well, at any rate, I can talk to you about where they're at. We have a new commercial area, our neighborhood commercial area that was put over the 2750 Trailhead Equestrian Center and the property that the city owns east of Mountain Road that currently is zoned R12 and R12.5, so that'd be residential zoning just under 1/4 acre. There's one north at the end of Lakeview that's been placed on the property that's owned by the Marriotts that used to be owned by the Weber School District. And then another just a little bit further east. So what we're wondering from the council's position is, would you be supportive of leaving these future centers? Oh, there we go. John's found it. Thank you. So there's one east on Monroe's corridor between 2100 and 2300 North. And then that yellow line, that yellow spot on the east side, which is the equestrian park and the area that we own with the disc golf course, and then way up north on Mountain Road. And if you go into Wasatch Front Regional Council and you look at what neighborhood commercial means, it's small scale commercial. So this isn't convenience stores, it's not gas stations, it's not large stores. It would generally be thought of in the urban context of something like 9th and 9th in Salt Lake City, or 15th and 15th is even a better example. More locally, the Cafe Mercantile that's just east of Harrison Boulevard on, I think, 2600 North, like think small scale commercial and the way it fits into residential. And we were having a conversation with some of the property owners up on the hill. As you get up into the cove and a little bit further north, it's a 10-minute drive to get to the nearest store. So in some of these areas where we have really high growth coming, we want to be proactive about planning for small scale commercial that would be service oriented, like a place to go get a gallon of milk that saves you a 10-minute drive down the hill. And again, you know, WFRC can strip these off the map if there's absolutely no desire or interest from the city in putting them on, or they can leave them on the regional map, and we can then have a local conversation about how does that change or amend our general plan, because there is no, you know, statewide obligation to have general plans match. But I wanted to bring it to Planning Commission and City Council instead of just, you know, do the planner, like siloed planner portion of, yeah, I think these look great, or I think I'm interested in these, and really hear from the council on what your opinions are.
All right. Councilmember Pulver.
I guess, because I listened to that, that was awesome. Talking about how, you know, as we build or connect the streets, meaning Monroe and then also Mountain Road, that they become pretty significant travel ways. I don't know what connectors. And I think if you don't have something on those that, you know, even create even more, I think that's kind of a travesty to just ignore that. And I think, like you said, you know, coming down to Smith's, well, not horrible, is definitely something to be desired if you just need one little thing. And I think one other thing, and I can't remember who I was talking to, but cemeteries. I think either, you know, Pleasant View's got to come up with something, or we need to come up with another one, because it seems like that's something also to think about, I guess, in the planning is where else are we sticking it? Because the one that we have right by the junior high is pretty near full from what I've heard. So I've had several different inputs that, the weird area right by the, what are we calling it? The steep slope right there, just above the Hollises that,
Bench,
say again?
long bench.
Long bench. Depending on how that gets developed is, maybe along that is to put either that, some type of cemetery or open space, or like you're saying, because that's going to be right along Mountain Road,
Mhm.
some kind of that commercial type thing.
And those residents wouldn't mind a little commercial next,
No, I wouldn't, but
the ones in the cemetery, I mean, that's a
oh,
Well-
good heavens, yeah.
joke.
Not that we're talking cemeteries, but Pleasant View is looking at putting one in.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yep. I think they already
don't
have the
live in
land.
Pleasant View.
Huh?
I don't live in Pleasant View.
I know. I hear about it with my other job going to those meetings, but it'll still be an extension of the Ben Lomondson Cemetery. So it's all just,
Okay.
they're looking at expanding. Yeah.
Councilman Pulver wants permanent residency.
He wants
in
permanent
North-
residents on the hill.
I already have, yeah,
to look
I already
down on
have
the
a spot
flat. Yeah.
technically. Actually, I have a spot at the Air Force Academy too, so I'm covered either way.
The way you can think about how we might use this, Lakeview Drive extension or Mountain Road, if the city wanted to go out and do a pioneering build or construction of Mountain Road and it came close to one of those centers, we could say the city is supportive of this, general center and changing zoning, and therefore we see the reason for you, Wasatch Front Regional Council, putting several $1 million into a roadway project for us that's kind of seeding future development, but we kind of agree with your vision, or we lean on agreeing with the vision. That's a way that this could work. And then we wait the time out, we do the small amount of investment from the city that, between 10 and 20% match, and then get a significant portion of roadway funding. We can also wait it out as we have been, which is Mountain Road will largely be constructed by the developers as they march up the hill and they build each phase. We get these little snippets of it. So it depends on what you want to do. I think that one's probably the most, in my opinion, controversial of all of the commercial areas. Like, I can see a use case for a central city commercial around Monroe as it's built out, just because Monroe will run north-south from Jackson Avenue all the way south down into Ogden, and small neighborhoods sized commercial makes sense there to just pull a little bit of traffic off of Washington Boulevard, or keep all trips from having to access and go over to Washington Boulevard. But would love to hear your thoughts. And if you need time, if you want to, email me your thoughts. Wasatch Front Regional Council is looking for this feedback by the end of the month, but they are in the middle. They're about 2 years into their 4-year adoption cycle. So we do have time to massage this or change it or make, requested changes. This isn't our only opportunity to make comments.
Yeah, I think it's a golden opportunity, to be honest, to one, expand the commercial base, and number two, to help the citizens not have to do, like you're saying, come all the way down the hill. But and I think the biggest part of the whole thing is working with the current landowner, which sometimes is difficult, but because the whole thing where Mountain America is going up. I mean, that was some of it's kind of not tenuous, but sensitive. And I think but if, the Marriotts are, I think they would be very open to that. I don't know. That's just a thought, but because especially in an area that would be either, number one, hard to develop or hard to sell for, residential type of things, I think maybe push that. And I think that's something that,
And this was when early on in my council years, the original plans did have commercial up in this, well, it's in a different area. And everybody was it was, not a hot top. Well, it was a very hot topic, not a very popular topic. I'm actually in favor of it up on the hill too. I always thought something like the straw market from Pleasant View would work great up in the hillside.
yeah, something small, not crazy. Yeah.
And I think if you do it correct, it'd be a good benefit for the hill. Councilmember Dalpaz,
Yeah, I think it's a messaging thing because if somebody's like, "Oh, what are we gonna have a Target up, at the top top of Washington?" Like that's crazy. I think that's where we'd have to be most careful about it. But if it's just a matter of it's on this as a potential future vision, and to your point, if it's a matter of since it's on this map and we go in the future to apply to something with Wasatch Front Regional Council that happens to be in one of these areas, um, it's a good thing. And if we struck it down right now, we wouldn't have that opportunity, right?
Just,
So,
it's like, it's a few points extra that you receive that if you align your projects with vision areas and,
Ye-
growth areas
yeah.
that match the growth.
yeah, and I didn't want to glaze over this because this was mentioned in Planning Commission, and Councilman Barker kind of mentioned this. I think you were referring to that Mountain Road and equestrian area being shown as commercial. I, I, you know, I think that that area should be fine for that. As long as people understand that, we don't have any imminent plans with that area. I could see the rumor mill starting up right now of why that is intended to be commercial, and I'm not going to say the name of what that item would be, but it's just there because if in the future, if we wanted to, we could apply for it and work with Wasatch Front Regional Council. That area makes me a little bit nervous because of the previous public works situation where the neighbors in the area kind of started pushing that plan in that area down to where it is. So I don't know if a similar thing would ever happen, but as long as it's kind of known that this is a area that is shown as potential commercial, and the only reason that it's shown as potential commercial is that something could happen and somebody could apply for something, and then we could take a look at it, then I think that's fine. And then I think the lower Monroe one, 2100 Northish Monroe, that seems pretty logical. Although I think some people would say it isn't. But I think if you're looking at it from not from 23,000 residents, but looking at it from 40,000 residents, that's where it starts to make a lot more sense to me. In its current state right now, I would say, no, that doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't belong there. But I think in the future vision of things, it possibly could.
Yeah, especially when you're waiting 20 minutes to buy a gallon of milk at Smith's or Lee's.
Agreed. Just all right. Do we have any other discussion or comments?
No, that's very
That's
helpful.
what-
And I'll forward those comments on and say, we're generally supportive that these land use locations may change, but city and the council were generally supportive of these areas, so let's leave them on for now. The vision's horizon is out to 2055. That exceeds our typical general plan horizon of like 10 to 15 years. And so you have an opportunity to kind of steer that barge over time with land use, and that's what we should do. But this in no way locks you in. It's just kind of an opportunity hanging out there that we can look at future ways to change local plans.
Okay. Do you need anything else
No,
on
I
that
think
item? Okay.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Then we'll move on to item number 12, discussion on the North Ogden City Economic Development First Quarter Report. And again, our Community Economic Development Director, Scott Hess.
Thank you. So, in discussions with the mayor, the council, and then John as our city manager and also wearing the city attorney hat at times with this, the department's been requested to provide a quarterly economic development report. So this is the first version of this. Would love feedback on the version, if this is or kind of the formatting of this, or if it's what you're looking for. I threw a little bit of everything at the wall and we'll see what sticks. But I did want to talk to you about some of the key projects that we have coming in. So one is Barker Depot. That's obviously a major growth area for the city. That's 2600 North and Washington Boulevard, and really between 2600 and about 200 East and 2550, that entire 11 plus acres that currently includes the pond, in what it's going to ultimately be in the future. So we have been holding weekly and or biweekly meetings with the Barker Depot development team, including leading text Ryan Forsyth and their engineer Alexis Riggs. The updates have really helped us in clarifying what's going on the site. I mean, it was a little bit it had gone dark and then we'd receive applications and then gone dark. And the city has a limited ability to control what happens in most cases. And we've provided the zoning, we've helped them with their subdivision processes, but we can't, force a business operator to spend hundreds of thousands or $1 million to pull a building up out of the ground. So we're being as responsive as possible. We are reviewing the administrative items quickly and moving through those. The Planning Commission reviewed and approved the site plan for 2 new drive-through uses along 2600 North. And it's actually 2 buildings. So there's one standalone drive-through, one that's a dual drive-through, and the central being kind of like a health and wellness use. We have heard who we think is coming, but I don't have formal business license applications, so I'm weary to say those names out loud right now, but they all are populated with a business. And so that has given them the assurance that they're going to go ahead and begin building and pull those up out of the ground. This will be a huge change. I mean, we'll finally see between Mountain America Credit Union and these buildings, something happening on site. And I'm hoping that that's a catalyst for the next phase and future development, which Leading Tech has shared with us what the build out of the whole site looks like currently. And also we are expecting America First Credit Union just to the east of here to build a new branch and an office building. So AFCU will have quite a presence downtown, a nice new building along 2600 with their branch, and then they'll have all of their parking behind. So that corner is going to be anchored really strongly with AFCU. And then I think we have all the financial institutions that we need in the city, right? Like we're pretty well set up with those. We're going to start looking at more tax-based producing type of uses. Village of Prominence Point does continue to move forward slowly but consistently. So we have given certificate of occupancy to the 2 24-plex apartments. Jared Hewish with UBA Companies is another that we meet with pretty regularly. And they've got commercial opportunities coming near the corner of 1700 North and Washington Boulevard. And oddly enough, through that MPC zone and the development agreement, it puts the administrative approval portion of the site plan in the city council's hands. So you will see and get to weigh in on the site plan, the building renderings, location of that, location of parking, the use, all sorts of things once that application at 1700 North and Washington comes in. Bank of America is moving. That site plan is approved, pre-construction is held, building permits approved, and the building is currently under construction. So we've got steel going vertical on that building. We'll expect probably a late spring, early summer completion for that, depending on paving for the asphalt. Lock It Up Storage is moving forward. They phased their project into 2 pieces. The piece that we have an application for that is moving forward is internal work. So they want to do a 2-story climate controlled building on top of what's currently kind of a beat up parking lot that's really central to the site. You'll see it off of 1900 North through the trees. And then the other is upgrades to the site along 2000 North. And that is going to be a major change for the city. We'll pick up a sidewalk along their entire length of 2000 North, improving pedestrian connectivity and access. And that building permit is currently in review. I think we're nearing the completion of those building permits, but that's all been approved. And then business license approvals, just some to look at. Mountain America Credit Union's business license has been approved. The certificate of occupancy on that building is done. Olive Flutter, which is the little home that was then kind of like a curio shop and gardening shop, now has a new use, a reuse in it named Threads. So something of interest to go and take a look at. That's a local resident who's trying to do a small business in that location. Ben Lomond CrossFit at the corner of 1900 and Washington Boulevard came in and discussed potentially upgrading and expanding their business. It's thriving. We haven't seen that plan applied for yet. And then one of the interesting areas in North Ogden, we have a lot of residential, we have a lot of single family residential, something like 5,500 single family water connections. And that's kind of the way we track the number of total houses that we have sitting out there. But we have, dozens of home-based businesses per year. New ones come in, and hundreds of total home-based businesses all over the city. And everything from a CPA running taxes to people doing, hair and aesthetics out of their house. minor impacting small businesses, but generate some sales tax revenue, help us with property tax, and keep people, they're kind of like germinating sites for businesses that end up becoming full-scale businesses. And we watched a food truck turn into a location in Pleasant View, but the slop shop started as a food truck, and now it is in a standalone building that's doing great. And then John and I attended the Northern Utah Development Symposium. The Northern Utah Economic Association is a group where Davis County and Weber County came together to try to kind of raise awareness of the economic opportunities to the north, because everything was sort of going Salt Lake County and Utah County down in the Provo and the Point area. So they brought together on March 19th a symposium with economic development professionals, real estate professionals, local businesses, local communities, and others, and discuss Northern Utah economic development as a region. And what I took out of this is that, one, Northern Utah is essentially out of space to locate large users of flex industrial and office space. So between what's happened with the MIDA development at 5600 South and the Hill Air Force Base, they have tens of thousands of square feet of new Class A office going in, and we're relocating Boeing folks and Northrop Grumman folks and other engineers, really high-paying jobs from all over the country into our area. And those jobs typically last like 2 to 3 years on rotation, and then they'll move out and pull somebody else in. I only know that because one bought my house in 2019 when we sold it. And they continue to grow in that area in Roy. But what you're going to see is this large-scale industrial and large-scale Class A office is going to continue to push further north and further south in the region. So where North Ogden was sort of, I think, on the fringes of the Ogden growth and definitely on the fringes of the Salt Lake City growth, we're now primed for development that's coming in this area. And I won't say it's happening in North Ogden specifically. So one idea that had come to me while I was sitting there is that one of North Ogden's best components that we could provide to overall economic development is just really good housing choice in this area, because we're a short drive to a lot of future job centers that are high-paying jobs. So we could create households that have high-paying jobs in them that would support our tax-based centers. And we are a bit of a destination community. You have to choose to drive here. We don't have a freeway access. So I think that for the planning department, planning commission, and the city council, something we should be focusing on is how do we make sure that we have a variety of housing types that meet all needs and kind of all residents, from even those starting out with brand new jobs all the way up to some of the highest end housing that we have in Weber County. And I think we can continue to do that and provide that as kind of a landing spot or a home base for some of these other large business opportunities that are coming. With that, I'll take any questions and then ask if you'd like something different in the next quarter, or if that kind of economic development update works for you.
All right, thank you. Any comments for, Councilmember Pulver?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think just staying in touch, especially with what's going on below Lee's there, I think is awesome. And I think that's definitely something to keep working on. And I like the format visual. It's always a good thing for me. But to answer the last part, you had me thinking, because there's a lot of different people that I've met either through work or when I was campaigning in, I've found 2 old soccer kids, I'll call them kids because they were kids, that are living in either by the pool or behind the movie theater, in those small starter type condo places. And also I found some Northrop people there, some Boeing people there. And then I know there's 2, one just moved into North Ogden that is working at Northrop Clearfield. And one of the engineers lives over by junior high, North Ogden Junior High. So I get constant feedback every time I meet those people, and the funny thing is, one of her, I guess her husband is a wood shop guy, and he's dying to fix the North Ogden sign that's kind of where you're coming up Mountain Road. Yeah. And he's like, I'll fix it. And I'm like, oh. So I mean, for free. And so he's that. So I guess my point is that, yeah, there's a lot of people coming in for those jobs and it's not stopping. Northrop overall, meaning Bacchus, Clearfield, and Promontory would probably be, I mean, with all the not Elon Musk, Bezos has a major contract that he's pulling in for one of their boosters. And then also the Sentinel, which is going to be hitting pretty hard. And then if MDA, Missile Defense Agency, does anything about the, what are they calling it? Golden Dome, I think. Northrop does a lot of that work as well. So that's going to pull in a lot of more people that, between, because we're kind of literally the middle between Promontory and Bacchus or Magna. So
Those are all
anyway,
generally six-figure plus engineering jobs that are really good and coming in. They're residents that we would love to have in our city, and quality of life is extremely high here. So between providing housing choice, the other is just being really careful about preserving the quality of life that we've
Yep.
created in North Ogden, because we could see growth kind of inundate us really quickly if we're not careful.
exactly.
And I just wanted to congratulate Scott and the planning department on the Barker Depot development, just because I think that residents don't always understand how long of an process that has been to get the land exchanging hands between the previous owners and the developer. And now we're to a point that I think things are going to really start to pop there. And so congratulations on that area. And we're very hopeful and excited for some businesses to come there. So thank you. And just generally, my feedback on this type of quarterly report, yes, please. Once a quarter, something to this extent would be amazing. And I think the residents will very much appreciate it as well.
Yep, agreed. I thought it was nice to have it publicly. So thank you. Okay. All right, moving on. We'll go to council department reports. We'll start with Councilmember Dalpaz in the police department.
Sure. So with the police department, a couple of things to mention is that we still are accepting applications for lateral peace officers. And we did just have an open position, or a position open up for a court administrator. And so if you know anyone that would be a good fit for either of those, definitely encourage them to apply. And then if it's okay, Christina sent some updates and I'd be glad to read them for her.
Sure. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So she was set to talk about administration and recreation. So a few things that she was going to update everyone on, and I'm going to kind of pick and choose because I don't want to, there's like a million bullets here. But first of all, the American Red Cross lifeguard course wrapped up last Saturday. They had 19 students who passed, and that course includes over 35 hours of intensive training, so that's a very good thing. The lifeguard instructor course also tested out, and 4 students earned their LGI certification, so congratulations to them. She wanted to mention that they are currently de-winterizing the locker rooms and pump house for the aquatic center, which includes labeling valves, pumps, and chemical lines for safety and convenience. She mentioned that they are working on a few tasks to help with Cherry Days preparations, including securing sponsorships, especially for the Flick and Float event. She wanted to mention that we are interviewing and hiring a bunch for the 2025 season. As many people know, we have a lot of seasonal positions between the lifeguard positions and a lot of parks positions in North Ogden City. Very good opportunity for local youth to have a great job that's decent paying. Swim lessons will be opening up for public sign up on April 1st.
It's supposed to snow that day.
Yeah. Well, we won't talk about the potential snow for that day, but well, but that's just sign up. That's just signing up. Yeah, but still kind of ironic. Group reservations are already booking very fast. So if you are looking to book the aquatic center, please reach out to us for that. Oh, she has so much more. Okay, I'm going to pick what else I want to say. We have the accounts payable clerk position. that is going to be holding interviews in mid-April. And I have to stop somewhere, so I'm going to stop there.
All right. Thank you. City Manager John, do you have anything for capital projects?
Sure. So the detention basin project relocation, uh, the federal funding is in a holding pattern. So still, well, it is one of those that, with all of the grant freezing and stuff, we're unsure if it would be funded in the future. So, we do have a backup plan in the sense that we've talked to the engineer and said, what would it take if we needed to move it, and get it online? And it would be, 4 to 6 months, $60,000 to design. Sorry, 1 to 2 months to design for 60,000 to finish it out. And then about 6 months construction time, 4 to 6 months of construction. So we could move it quickly if we needed to, based on the Barker Depot stuff that would be happening. So we're just kind of waiting on that. The water reservoir, I think we've told you it's done, but it is done. It's online. Water is flowing and storing and all that good stuff. The Water Works Park, if you haven't seen it, is cemented in. The final grading is happening, and that's excited. So if you want to go over there and look, you can see the troughs, the stainless steel troughs and things. The water's not there yet or anything like that, but that's in. Our guys put it in ourselves. I think the quote to install it was 160 grand. So it was 60 grand to have an outside group come and install it. And I believe our guys did it in 2 days, digging it and installing it. We've got a good team. And then Orton Park Playground is fenced off because it's being replaced right now. And the aquatic center is in process. So we've started stuff. We're doing SCADA. The flooring's in the old building, not the old building, the main building. Little things are going on. The biggest thing that is probably the most exciting won't happen until after the season's over, which is the new water feature in the center. The timing of that, they could not get the playground here in time to install it before the season started. So we're going to install it hopefully in September, October timeframe, and then get the new pool liner in after that. So that's on its way. And then just as an update for Cherry Days, just for those who wonder, there is information on a website. Ryan and Katie have been doing a ton of work. Ryan probably more than anybody. Dave as well have just been killing it. We are doing a car show on Monday the 30th, a luau on Tuesday the 1st. On Wednesday's the Flick and Float at the Aquatic Center. On Thursday is the rodeo. And there may be other activities in the city by which we are not sponsoring or involved in, although I think they will ask for a permit. Red, White, and Boom. That's what I'm talking about. And then on Friday is all the other stuff. We have a fireworks vendor, or at least one who's going to come look and give us a quote, who has availability. He used to do our work, so we're pretty familiar with him. The night or the day we'll have the parade, children's parade, the 5K, the
On
Kiwanis
which road?
breakfast. On what?
Which road?
On Washington Boulevard. So Dave was able to arm wrestle Nate Boyette and convince him that we could do it safely on Washington. And so that was kind of the crutch we talked about last time, is what does public safety what is their recommendation? They have moved their recommendation to Washington, and so we've suggested we follow that. I think I did sunrise ceremony, vendor booths, Kiwanis breakfast. It's all happening on the 4th. Sometime in the afternoon as the vendor fair winds down, we will start ramping up over at Barker Park, where we will have ping pong ball drop, some kids games, a concert, and fireworks. And the thing that's probably the most, this is a lot of work in planning. So we're also, as staff, trying to track our hours so that council can understand what's happened. But some of the things we've done this year should be really not heavy lifting on the day of. A good example is the luau. We are going to have food trucks and dessert food trucks show up, and people who want to patronize them can patronize them. Those who don't have to. Trying to cater that dinner is just too much work. We will have the Grand Marshal dinner that night under a tent and things, and we will provide them a catered event, for their family. We don't have one yet. So if your name comes up on the list, anyone online or anything, you get for a free meal. So why not say yes? But it's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a busy week. And really, I can't say enough about Dave and Ryan and their effort on this. Just the organization that Ryan does and the groundwork that Dave does, it's just the city could not do it without them, and I would maybe move to Arizona and live under a viaduct if they weren't here. So that's that. Anyways, I just wanted to give that update too, since I think it's going to be something that council and residents need to hear, since it is happening in 3 months. So,
All right. Well, thank you. We'll move on. Public comments. If anyone would like to make a comment, come up, state your name, resident of North Ogden or not, and then let's keep our comments to under 5 minutes.
Thank you, Kevin Burns from North Ogden. That's a lot to cover in one night. That's a lot of meeting. And the thing I noticed about tonight's meeting, we had a lot of topics that involved studies and the results of studies and the time that had gone into studies. And I know there's a paramedic study out there.
Mhm.
You've seen the paramedic study.
Mhm.
I've seen the paramedic study. We're getting paramedic program out of our fire station based on the study. Scott talked a lot about the development in North Ogden and the future, the high-end homes, the high-paying job that can come in, and the commercial development. That's all great. Now, I'd like to encourage you to work with Pleasant View to fund a legitimate feasibility study for your police department, instead of a group of well-intentioned people throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks. Because we have a big future, and our public safety is our largest portion of our budget that puts a lot of liability on the city. And again, a professionally done feasibility study. And let's not rush it. We don't have to be under the clock. We have a police department. We're funding a police department. We're not in a race. So please slow down and do it correctly. Thank you.
nobody online.
All right. Seeing no other comments, we'll close public comments. We'll go to mayor, council, staff comments. Let's start with staff. Dave, do you have anything? Scott, anything more? Oh, do you want to?
Scott is not allowed to talk all night.
Oh, okay. Ryan? John?
Nothing else.
All right. Any comments from council? Councilmember Pulver.
Just one reminder, budget subcommittee tomorrow. We're talking, what are we talking? That's a good question. Oh, enterprise funds, admin. Is it police too?
It should be Public Works and Parks, since they're under. I think
No, because we had, oh, anyway, that's what I had for the 26th. I guess we can talk about whatever we want to, but that was, because I think that's what was coming next to what was coming to council on the next meeting. We'll figure it out. That's why I stuck in
yeah,
the
but
agenda,
What you're saying is there's an invigorating meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m.
3 to 5.
Okay.
Bring your taquitos. I don't know, whatever.
All right.
I'm gonna put it on that Phil didn't read my email. So that's okay. He can take a little razzing from me.
He's not here, so we can.
We will talk about yellow sheets, and we also will probably touch on capital projects as well. With again, it being kind of that non-official committee. We can play with the agenda all we want, but we will cover the items that we've talked about in the next 2 meetings for all the yellow sheets, all the departments.
Because the key thing is to get something to the council as a recommendation before we like make final decisions. We don't want to come, because I think we did that the first year. We like came at the last minute and council was like, okay, you know, and then nothing changed. So, and that's kind of, I want to avoid that. So that's it.
All right. Councilmember Dowpaz, do you have anything?
Nope.
Nope. And I have nothing further to add. Be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.